Good afternoon and welcome to today's discussion between the Grand Forks Herald and Superintendent of Grand Forks Public Schools, Dr. Terry Brenner. I'm Corey Wenzel, publisher of the Herald. This event is being broadcast live on grandforksherald.com and it will be available there for later viewing shortly after its conclusion. Today's conversation continues the Herald's series of COVID-related discussions, which we hope will answer important questions as the community deals with the pandemic. Dr. Brenner, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Corey. I'm happy to be here and happy to provide any clarity for our community members.
We'll kick it off. We plan about 25 minutes or so today, and we've got a series of questions. Here's the first one. How ready is the school district for this school year? What still needs to be done before the school year begins?
We are finalizing our cohorts of classes. So let's just start at the elementary level. From a distance learning perspective, we have created cohorts at kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we've made teacher assignments for each of those cohorts. For the most part, we've been able to keep classes together, although there were some, maybe a number of students from maybe our smaller schools where we couldn't have a full first grade or a full second grade. They'll be joining one of the larger schools. So there'll be a little intermixing going on, but they'll be hearing from their teacher this week. We did send a letter out to our distance learning parents last week to let them know that communication would be coming. We also provided an outline of what the school day will look like from a distance learning perspective for our K-5 elementary students. On the flip side of that, for those students who are coming to our campuses face-to-face at the elementary level, those classroom lists should be going out later this week. We know that's pushing things close to the first day of school next Monday, but some of the delay was a result of not all parents responding to the second survey relative to what format they wanted education to be for their family. So our school secretaries were busy tracking down those families and getting information from them. So that's created a little bit of a delay. But by Friday of this week, all of our K-5 students should know who their classroom teacher will be. At the secondary level, we are creating, some cohorts of distance learning students. The academic platform for most of our students will be Edmentum. That's an online platform that has just a menu of course offerings, and we will be assigning distance education teachers to those students. In some cases, the distance education teachers who are working in their content area will deliver that direct instruction for students. Where we don't have the content area teacher, that will be delivered by the platform itself. And then those students will be assigned a distance learning mentor or coach who's a certified teacher, who's just going to make sure that those students continue to attend class, they're engaged, and they're completing their work. So we want to make sure we have safety and security nets around all of our students, whether they're the 1,300 students at home or the other 6,000 plus who will be coming to our buildings.
Okay. Can you explain the process for substitute teachers and paraprofessionals? Has the usual list, if there is one, been diminished this year as sub-teachers and paras are choosing not to work in person?
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of a dip on both ends from a substitute teacher and a paraprofessional perspective. And in many cases, our substitute teachers are retired teachers, veteran teachers who come back to us. And there's just a little bit more of a risk with age and maybe some underlying health conditions. So there have been a few opt-outs relative to that. But I would say that our practice is going to be standard. This Friday, we're actually going to have a professional development day for substitute teachers to really afford them the opportunity to know everything COVID-19. So before they go into the school campus, they know all the precautions that we've put in place for their safety, for the student safety, and for their colleague safety. So I would say that all of it remains pretty much the same and fluid, although we are doing some additional training for our subs this Friday of this week.
Just a follow-up on that one, Dr. Brenner. Is it an alarming decrease, or is it a decrease that really makes you worried about filling those gaps this coming school year?
It's not alarming at this point, but what I have learned through a conversation with another superintendent in a large school district that have already started school, the number of staff that have been depleted related to COVID-19, few confirmed cases, but the close contacts has created quite a hole and quite a vacuum in their system thus far. So they're 3 or 4 days into it, and they're seeing the challenges being on the faculty side, not the student side at this point.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll stop there.
Has the district had to make new hires overall, virtual learning instructors, nurses, et cetera?
Yeah, we've had to reach out to some additional certified teachers. We created a secondary pool of applicants for our face-to-face learning model, and we brought some individuals back for a second round of interviews. So to answer your question pointedly, we've added 3 elementary teachers who will serve in a distance learning or virtual model, and we've added 8 secondary teachers. As far as nurses, we haven't added any nurses, but we are taking one additional step at the campus level where we are adding 18 FTEs, one at each campus, who will be the facilitator of the isolation room. That is, if a student comes down to the office, we want to make sure we're going to treat it as COVID, even though probably 99% of the time it won't be COVID. But that person will facilitate the communication to the parents for a pickup. And because that really won't be we're not anticipating that that's going to be a full-time, 7.5 hour day. That person is also going to serve as our contact tracer internally and work with our contact tracer from public health. And public health, as long as I'm talking about it, they have been remarkable and phenomenal throughout this process. They have already assigned a contact tracer per building or buildings where we have clusters of those folks. So it's not going to feel so randomized. Each school will have a person to go to at public health, as will the district.
There's I'm off script for a moment. There's an old newspaper adage that you always ask, how much will it cost and how do you pay for it? So with that in mind, how much will that cost and how is that being paid for?
We are coding everything that is additional above and beyond what our academic year would be to a COVID column. Our business manager, Scott Berge, already has, I think, about 13 pages of COVID related expenses. But when you take 60,000 plus, multiply that by 11, and that adds up pretty quickly with some benefits. So, and we are not in a great financial position to be adding staff. So we have every intention of reclaiming those funds, whether that's going to be a plea at the state level or the federal level. We did receive, and I think I talked about this last time, some of the CARES Act or ESSER funding mechanism sources from the federal government. That's been very helpful for PPE. That's been helpful for some of the accommodations that we're making at our school level. That's been very helpful to fast track some of our technology to get upgraded in new one-to-one devices in the hands of all of our students. So that $2.2 million didn't take very long to spend. So we are optimistic and hopeful that help is going to be on its way.
Okay. What will be the protocol for alerting parents if their student has been exposed?
We'll use our Blackboard Connect calling system. That's both text messaging and emailing and voicemail messaging to let them know if their student was in close contact. And also public health is going to be a major player in this. They're really going to take the lead. The contact tracer is going to take the lead on this. So we will make sure we collaborate with them before any communication goes out so there aren't any missteps along the way. So the contact tracing is going to be a shared responsibility between the district and public health.
Okay. What will recess look like? I believe in the past, especially back in the spring, I believe the playgrounds were shut down. So if that happened then, what will happen this year during the school year regarding playground equipment, et cetera?
Well, hats off to all of our elementary principals for the plans they put in place. And that's really where the playgrounds are being used, both from a school day perspective and from a community perspective after hours. During the instructional day, they have already mapped out how equipment will be used, how the playgrounds will be sectionalized, if you will. They're going to stagger times when students are out, when students are in. And there's just going to be this high focus on washing your hands before, washing your hands afterwards. So we want to keep our classes in units. And we've seen this done really well with our coaches, with athletics, where they're keeping their athletes in units as well within that team concept, because that has worked well. And it's proven well. We're going to use that same model out on the playground. As far as disinfecting equipment, much of it is kind of this high density plastic that nothing really lives on it very long. So we don't have the equipment to sanitize the outside playground equipment. So we're going to rely on the weather, to help us out there. But really, we're going to really, again, focus on hygiene, hand washing, sanitizing, distancing, and keeping cohorts together and keeping some grade levels apart.
And just to clarify, so that means equipment will be open. They'll be able to play on the equipment.
The equipment will be open, yes.
Good. On the days when students are distance learning, will there be lunch available for those who need it?
Yes. So the students who are in the hybrid model at the high school level, the every other day model, when they are at home distance learning, they can come to the school and pick up their lunch. If they're in a complete distance learning model, they can come to the school every day. It'll be curbside, and they can pick up their lunch every day. And we're following the national lunch program. So unfortunately, it's full price for those who can afford it, reduced for those who can't, and free who are in another category. So that's a little bit different than last spring when we were able to do curbside delivery at no cost. That was really supported by the federal government, but we're back into the national lunch program this year.
Okay. During summer school, there were reports that a teacher and a student tested positive. Is that true? And then what can you tell us about the process that happened and what steps did the school take?
Yes, that was true. Happened at 2 different campuses. And the good news is there was self-disclosure made by the person who was involved, and public health was involved right away. And then they were able to get into the contact tracing and make sure those contacts were made for people who were in close proximity to the student and the faculty member. And they were at, again, just to clarify, they were at 2 different campuses. So we had a nice trial run of what school is going to look like on a smaller scale with summer school. We had K-8 students at our campuses, and everything went quite well and really smoothly. We know that we're bringing more than 6,000 students back into our buildings, so that's going to have a different feel to it. But I will say that, from a macro level view, it's one thing for the district to say, here are the parameters, here's what your classroom sizes are, here's the metric to work with to keep kids 6 feet apart. The reality is, and the rubber meets the road when teachers get into their classrooms and they see, feel, and touch, the environment that they're going to work in. So we've had some teachers working through some extenuating circumstances with principals, and we believe we're ready to go for Monday, August 31st. And just to clarify, I don't have blinders on. I don't have my head in the sand. Is there risk involved with bringing everybody back? Absolutely, there's risk involved. But when we look at the model that we've created from a K-8 perspective, there's been some conversation about whether middle school should shift to a hybrid instead of the face-to-face. The risk reward, when we have those conversations, is simply too great from our perspective to have middle school kids staying at home. They're not cognitively, they're not fully developed yet, like perhaps closer to a high school student. We worry about isolation. We worry about social emotional support. We worry about mental health issues, and we worry about academic lag if they're seeing teachers every other day. So that's what we've landed on, and we're staying the course through this next Monday. We're fully aware that the COVID-19 data is there's an incredible uptick in our county, probably more precisely in our community, but we don't know what that means for us. We don't know how many of our faculty, if our faculty would be testing right now, we would have those numbers. And we've had a couple hundred people move through that process as recently as last Friday, but most of our students haven't been tested. So we really need to get everybody back to the building before we can make any decisions about whether a classroom stays open, a school stays open, or if the district stays open. But I just really wanted to highlight that we're acutely aware of what is happening around us.
We touched on this a moment ago, but I'll ask the question officially. Are additional janitorial staff being added, and what new roles will teachers play in sanitizing classrooms or the buildings in which they work?
Yeah, additional custodial staff have been summoned, and we've got some opportunities within our existing staff. For example, with the hybrid model at the high school, that has reduced the size of staffing that we would need in child nutrition. So rather than furloughing some of our folks, We've offered them custodial positions at the same wage, the same hours that they would work in the kitchen. So they're going to be our support mechanism from a cleaning perspective at the high school level. As far as what happens at the classroom level, anything that isn't a risky chemical-based type of product, certainly teachers are able to use that. We're going to teach students how to wipe down tabletops or desks. And that's just going to become our new routine this year. As a matter of fact, what we're going to spend a lot of time on this first week of school is the most important thing, and that's the relationship between students and teachers. And the second piece will be digital competency. So in the event that we've got a pivot and everybody goes home with their device, we know what's going to happen within the next 24, 48, or 72 hours. And the third piece will be, what is the new routine as far as distancing, as far as washing hands? Don't touch your face. Keep your mask on most of the time when distancing cannot be maintained. So that is going to be procedures, routines. We're really going to hit that hard the first week of school.
Were you at all surprised that elementary student numbers were so high for distance learning versus middle or high school numbers?
From a community data perspective, that was a little surprising, but I also fully understand based on the science that our little bodies, 10 years old and younger, can be super spreaders. So we may have a number of families who have extenuating circumstances at home, underlying health conditions, and they don't want their child or their super spreader to be going to school and then coming home and bringing that home. So in one respect, a little bit surprising, but not completely surprising given some of the scientific information that we have.
Again, venturing away from the questions here, the Herald on Saturday ran a story about the school district and the concerns, and it was the headline said something like confidence, faith, and fear. I was wondering, is that what it's like when your phone is ringing and among the people you're talking to? Is it a mix of all those, or what are you mostly hearing from people as we're getting close?
I would say it is a mixture. The number of people who have reached out to me, whether they're parents, community members, or people, internal staff, I would say that that's a smaller population, but they all can hang their hat on some really good data of why they're concerned. And I've appreciated all of them reaching out to me. So that's the fear part. And I wouldn't be truthful in saying I'm not afraid, because I am. I worry every day. I worry about 7,500 students who we have. I worry about all of our colleagues across the district. That's a total number of 15. I worry about our families, and I worry about our community. That doesn't go away just because we're saying school is starting on Monday. That doesn't say that the worry goes away. And I'm not looking for anybody to play a small violin for me, but there have been a lot of sleepless nights thinking about what this is going to look like and how long we are going to be able to stay in this face-to-face environment.
Well, Dr. Brenner, thank you very much for your time today. Again, for the readers who joined us, this is broadcast live on grandforksherald.com. It will be available there for later viewing as soon as we conclude. Perhaps we'll be able to do this again as part of our series. But again, thank you. Best of luck. We're hoping for the best out there, and we hope everybody is hanging in there. I know it must be a stressful time for everyone there.
Appreciate the opportunity, Corey, and I'm happy to do this as often as you would like. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.